didn't notice you there. Tell me what you want, baby. These are the times we all wish for. Somebody sleeping in my bed. Never, never, never. Oh no, no. Walks by me every day. Another day is gone. Another night now dawn. And we were biceps. How deep is your love for me? Oh yeah. But we're not making love no more. Got this feeling, and I just can't turn it loose. I should be a boyfriend. I should be a boyfriend. But you still ran out on me. Oh yeah.
Here's how you create boy band magic: charisma, killer style, a standout lead voice, or a lineup packed with talent, and a look that makes them unforgettable. In 1996, Dru Hill burst onto the scene with the whole package. Armed with gritty, gospel-rooted harmonies and electrifying performances, they captured fans instantly. Their raw, soul-stirring vocals and bold, trend-setting style set them apart from the rest. For a moment in the 90s, Dru Hill wasn't just a group, they were a movement. Let's dive into their journey and uncover the story behind one of the most iconic male R&B groups of their era. Let's take it back to 1992, a time when Bill Clinton was gearing up to become the 42nd president. Criss Cross had everyone rocking their clothes backward, and Michael Jackson left the world in awe with his iconic 9-minute Remember the Time video. Amid this cultural shift, a young Tamir Ruffin was quietly setting the stage for his own legacy in R&B history. Tamir's connection to music wasn't just a hobby, it was in his blood. His uncle had ties to Motown legend Smokey Robinson, and his grandmother had a rare gift, effortlessly playing any song on the piano by ear. Growing up in Baltimore's tough streets, Tamir's voice became his shield, a talent so captivating that local hustlers would actually pay him to serenade their girlfriends with love songs. It wasn't just music that fueled his ambitions, though. Tamir also had a sharp mind for business and dreamed of one day building his own empire. Picture this: a high school freshman strutting into class in a suit or trench coat, briefcase in hand, like he was the next Gerald Busby or Berry Gordy. That was Tamir Ruffin, already exuding the confidence and ambition of a seasoned industry mogul. Initially, Tamir had his sights set on a solo career, but fate had other plans. Through his best friend Brevette, he crossed paths with Mark Cisco Andrews and James Woody Green, a duo already harmonizing their way through the halls. Tamir saw potential and thought teaming up could take things to the next level. By then, Tamir had embraced the nickname Nokio, short for nasty on key and octave, though he went all in with the stage name Nokio the Entity. With another classmate, Chris Thomas, joining the mix, the group 14 Karat Harmony was born. Rooted in their church upbringing, they began performing gospel songs at local churches and talent shows. But as they grew, their sound evolved, shifting from sacred hymns to the soulful secular tracks that would one day define them. However, there was one problem. Woody Green had a strict Baptist upbringing, and his mom wasn't about to let him stray from the church. Gospel music was the only thing she allowed her son to sing, so when she found out the group had transitioned to R&B, she pulled a 15-year-old Woody right out of the lineup. But Woody wasn't ready to give up his dream just yet. He continued sneaking in practice sessions with the group at school, even though he missed out on public performances. Ironically, it was during one of those Woodyless shows at Morgan State University that the group caught the attention of Kevin Peck, a savvy manager with an eye for talent. After the performance, Peck went above and beyond, personally driving each member home and stopping to speak with their parents at every house. His dedication won over the group and their families, and they eventually agreed to let him manage them. Under Peck's guidance, the group scored a major win, tying for first place at the legendary Apollo Theater's Amateur Night in New York, a pivotal moment that solidified their path to stardom. I've been singing since I can remember. It's like my mother sings, my father sings, my siblings, grandmother singing in church. It's like singing is like an outlet. Larry Anthony, better known as Jazz, was eager to be part of the group, but Nokio wasn't convinced at first. Every day, Jazz would approach Nokio at his locker, asking to join. And every time, Nokio would turn him down. That is, until Jazz performed Whitney Houston's The Greatest Love of All at a school assembly. After hearing his powerful voice, Nokio realized that they couldn't let this talent go to waste. Jazz's smooth vocals were just what the group needed, so they welcomed him into the fold. With Jazz officially on board, Bravette and Chris decided to leave the group, prompting the remaining members to reevaluate their direction. During this time, the group found themselves reconnecting with their gospel roots, which led to Woody's return, much to the approval of his mother. Woody joked later on that his mom told him, "You tried me," but the family reunion marked a turning point for the group. With Woody back in the mix, they continued forward as a quartet, ready to make their mark in the R&B world. One of the most well-known and memorable stories, not to mention one of the group's earliest gigs, was at the Fudgery, a local fudge shop where they'd harmonize while making customers' orders. It wasn't exactly a glamorous stage, but it was a start. As Cisco later shared with Baltimore Magazine, part of the job was to take popular songs and throw the word fudge in there. So instead of "Isn't she lovely?" we'd sing "Isn't fudge lovely?" No one gets discovered at the Fudgery, but it was great practice. The group's philosophy was simple. Our main goal is to keep the crowd entertained, and entertain they did. Their charisma and knack for captivating audiences were undeniable. Even in a fudge shop, Cisco, born Mark Andrews, had always known he was destined for the spotlight. His nickname, Cisco, came from childhood friends who thought his light curly hair gave him a Latino look. From a young age, Cisco was obsessed with performing. He entered and often won Michael Jackson dance contests, inspired after seeing the King of Pop moonwalk during Motown 25 in 1983. Reflecting on that moment, Cisco said, "That's when I knew what I wanted to do." While Michael Jackson shaped his love for performing, Cisco's vocal style and stage presence were heavily influenced by Kasai of Jodeci. Oh yeah, he'd say, channeling the raw, passionate energy that Kasai was known for while adding his own unique flair. It was a blend that would soon captivate fans across the world. Before Destiny's Child became global superstars, they were called Girls' Time. Before SWV rose to fame, believe it or not, they were called TLC after their initials for Tamara, Leanne, and Cheryl. And before Dru Hill found their stride, they cycled through several names as well, including 14K Harmony, Legacy, and Storm. As Storm, they managed to secure some local radio play for a couple of years, but it didn't lead to the big break they hoped for. Then, as Legacy, they landed a deal with University Music Group, a stepping stone that Cisco later referred to as a teeny-weeny deal in a 1999 Vibe interview. While it wasn't a game-changer financially, it gave the group valuable exposure on the HBCU circuit, and even opened doors to meetings with industry executives. Their raw talent was undeniable. The turning point came when the group flew to Los Angeles to audition for Interscope Records. During the audition, they listened to Tupac's unreleased single, How Do You Want It, just once and flawlessly sang it back in perfect harmony. That moment showcased their precision and musicality. Reflecting on it later, Cisco said, "Our ears had become so keen. We decided we were either going to get signed or go to school. We'd been at this since the 9th grade and it was going on 4 years." Their determination was unshakable, and it was clear they were on the brink of something big. Their big break came when University Music Group set up an audition with Hiram Hicks, the president of Island Black Music, a subdivision of Island Records. The group crammed into a car and drove to New York, not realizing this trip would change their lives forever. Hicks was working on the soundtrack for the movie Eddie and had a song called Tell Me in progress. When the group stepped into the studio and began singing the track, Hicks stopped them halfway through and said, "You guys gotta sign this paper." Just like that, they were officially signed. In an interview, they were asked about the origin of their name, and Cisco explained, "All right, we're from Baltimore, and there's a park in Baltimore called Dru Hill Park. You know, we wanted to represent where we were from, so we decided to call Dru Hill." Their label felt the name Legacy didn't resonate, so the group rebranded as Dru Hill, paying homage to their roots in Baltimore's Druid Hill Park. It was a name that tied them to their hometown and symbolized their journey. In August 1996, their debut single, Tell Me, dropped, marking their official arrival on the music scene. The song climbed to number 5 on the R&B charts and number 18 on the pop charts. In the music video, Dru Hill showcased their electric energy, dancing in sync against a vibrant Technicolor stage. With that, Dru Hill was officially on the map, and the R&B world had taken notice. Michael Jackson, Diana Ross, Beyoncé, every group seems to have that one member who's destined to steal the spotlight. It's not to say the others lack talent, but there's often a magnetic energy that makes one person shine a little brighter. Whether it's their voice, stage presence, or undeniable charisma, the public can't help but zero in on them. And for Dru Hill, that star was Sisqó. From the moment he stepped on stage, Sisqó had it. That electric energy, that unmistakable swagger. It couldn't be taught or faked. And let's be honest, his bold style choices didn't hurt either. With his signature platinum blonde hair, he stood out against his bandmates' classic black cuts. The label wasn't a fan of the look and even pressured him to dye it back to black, but Sisqó wasn't about to tone it down. He knew who he was, and that hair became a part of his identity. Another layer to the undeniable wow factor that made fans and the industry take notice. Some might argue the label was nudging him into the spotlight, but let's be real. Charisma like that can't be orchestrated. Sisqó's star power was authentic, and it was only a matter of time before the world recognized it. Dru Hill followed up their energetic debut of Tell Me with a slow-burning ballad that would cement their place in R&B history, In My Bed. Interestingly, the song had already made the rounds in the industry, with Sisqó later revealing that versions of the track had been recorded by 112 and even Usher before it landed in Dru Hill's lap. Despite its potential, the group wasn't thrilled about the song at first. Sisqó, in particular, wasn't feeling the subject matter. "I didn't want to sound like a loser singing about someone cheating on me," he admitted. Reluctantly, the group went along with it, and boy, was that the right call. The song skyrocketed to the top of the R&B charts, securing the #1 spot and further proving that Dru Hill wasn't a one-hit wonder. Sisqó's creative fingerprints were all over the So So Def remix of the track, a version that added even more flavor to the already iconic hit. But despite helping to arrange the remix, Sisqó didn't receive official credit for his contributions. It's another example of how Sisqó's knack for elevating a song was often overlooked at the time. But the fans noticed, and so did the charts. Can you give me your name? Nokio the Entity. And how old are you? 17. All right, I'm Jazz and I'm 18. I'm Sisqó the Golden Child. I'm 17. I'm Woody Rock and I just turned 19. All right, 4. In November 1996, Dru Hill dropped their self-titled debut album, and it was an undeniable success. The album peaked at number 23 on the US Billboard 200 and secured the 5th spot on the R&B albums charts. By June 1997, it had gone platinum, a major milestone for the Baltimore quartet. Critics were impressed, with AllMusic praising the project as an impressive debut and calling it a razor-sharp clue of the great things to come. The group had officially arrived. That same year, Dru Hill solidified their signature branding. Just as the Rolling Stones had their tongue logo, Prince claimed purple, and Michael Jackson owned the glove, Dru Hill found their identity in the dragon. During one of their first photo shoots in New York's Chinatown, the guys spotted a dragon mural on the wall. They insisted it stay in their pictures, adopting it as their own emblem, a move that would soon become iconic for the group. While Sisqó was undoubtedly the face and lead singer of the group, Jazz stepped into the spotlight for their third single, Never Make a Promise. His powerful vocals and emotional delivery pushed the song straight to the #1 spot on the R&B charts, showcasing the group's versatility. Jazz later explained the heart behind his writing. "I've been through a lot in my life, you know. I go through stuff every day. When I write songs, I write about what people go through. If one person can say, I listened to that song, and now I know I'm not the only one with these problems, that's what makes it worth it." It was clear that Dru Hill wasn't just about catchy hooks. They were here to tell stories that resonated with real people. Each member of Dru Hill contributed creatively to their debut album, showcasing their individual talents. Woody and Jazz both earned writing credits on 4 tracks, while Nokio stepped into the producer role, crafting 5 tracks himself, drawing heavy inspiration from Jodeci's Devontae Swing. Reflecting on this influence, Nokio shared in a 1999 interview, "I met Devontae not long ago. I was amazed." Similarly, Sisqo recalled his own starstruck moment meeting Keishi, saying, "It was like meeting Michael Jackson to me. My muscles locked up, my mouth went dry. He told me, 'You sound like me the way I sound like Bobby Womack. It's obvious you studied me like I studied him.'" These encounters solidified Dru Hill's connection to the greats that paved the way for their success. By 1997, Dru Hill seemed to be living the dream. They had a platinum album, multiple chart-topping singles, and a rapidly growing fan base. But behind the glitz and glamour, the reality was far less glamorous. They had little money to show for their success. Woody revealed, "All the money we made went back into the group." However, Hiram Hicks, their manager, claimed their financial struggles were due to unrealistic expectations, saying their earnings didn't match their sales. To make matters worse, the group's initial contract with University Records only gave them 12% of the sales for each album sold, and nearly half of that went toward paying their management, production team, stylists, and an ever-growing entourage. When they later signed their deal with Island Black Music, their cut became even smaller. Despite their success, Dru Hill quickly learned that the music industry often profits at the expense of its artists. In the spring of 1997, tensions within Dru Hill's camp reached a boiling point during their platinum record party, turning what should have been a celebratory moment into chaos. Keith Ingram, a member of Kevin Peck's management team, alleged that he was assaulted by their manager, Hiram Hicks, along with Hicks's brother Joshua, who was described in the lawsuit as an armed guard. According to the claim, Ingram and an associate were kicked and beaten with a pool stick, all in front of the group. The alleged altercation stemmed from a brewing argument reportedly triggered by feelings of disrespect, though the underlying tension seemed to be about money, or the lack of it. From Hicks's perspective, the financial issues were the responsibility of University Music Group, as they were the ones handling payments to the group. However, from everyone else's view, the blame fell squarely on Hicks and his label, Island Black Music, who were accused of engaging in predatory practices. The fallout escalated as Dru Hill and University Records filed a $55 million lawsuit against Island Records' parent company, Polygram, accusing them of an invidious terrorist campaign involving violent and coercive acts against the group. This bold claim painted a grim picture of the toxic environment surrounding their management and label. By November 1997, the lawsuit was settled for an undisclosed amount, bringing some relief to the group. The settlement also reportedly included an agreement allowing each member of Dru Hill the opportunity to pursue solo albums, setting the stage for a new chapter in their careers. However, the drama made it clear that while Dru Hill might have had the talent to conquer the charts, the battle behind the scenes was an entirely different challenge. By 1996, a 17-year-old Maya had just signed with Interscope Records, thanks to the efforts of Aha K. Islam, the same man who had secured Dru Hill's record deal. Maya was being touted as a rising star poised to compete with R&B heavyweights like Brandy and Monica. And Islam ensured she had access to top-tier talent to bring her debut album to life. Among her collaborators were the members of Dru Hill, with Sisqo playing a significant role. Her debut single, It's All About Me, was co-written by Sisqo and became an instant classic as a duet with him. The chemistry in their voices made it a standout track, solidifying Maya as one to watch. Sisqo also co-wrote her second single, Moving On, further highlighting their creative synergy. Meanwhile, Dru Hill wasn't slowing down. In November 1997, following the settlement with their label and in the lull between albums, the group released We're Not Making Love No More for the Soul Food movie soundtrack. Written and produced by the legendary Babyface, the single struck a chord with listeners, peaking at number 2 on the R&B charts and climbing to number 13 on the pop charts. The track's heartfelt lyrics and smooth harmonies showcased Dru Hill's emotional depth, earning them another hit. That same year, Dru Hill also joined forces with Foxy Brown for the single Big Bad Mama, featured on the How to Be a Player soundtrack. Their unmistakable vocals brought an added layer of smoothness to the rap anthem, further cementing their reputation as one of R&B's most versatile groups. From working with rising stars like Maya to collaborating with icons like Babyface, Dru Hill was proving they were a force to be reckoned with across the industry. In 1998, Dru Hill leveled up their artistry with the release of their sophomore album, Enter the Dru, a project heavily inspired by the 1973 martial arts classic Enter the Dragon. Recorded in just 3 weeks in Los Angeles, the album showcased the group's evolving sound and heightened creativity. Its lead single, How Deep Is Your Love, became a career-defining hit for the group. Sisqó explained the meaning behind the song with his signature flair. "Look, I know you got a man. I know you're dealing with this guy over here. But we're not talking about him right now. We're talking about me. So, how deep is your love for me?" The track struck a chord with fans, climbing to number 3 on the pop charts and becoming their third number 1 on the R&B charts, where it reigned for 3 weeks. Its infectious energy and smooth harmonies solidified Dru Hill's position as R&B powerhouses. The group's momentum didn't stop there. Their follow-up single, These Are the Times, showcased their romantic side and resonated with listeners, peaking at number 5 on the R&B charts. With Enter the Dru Hill proved that their debut success wasn't a fluke. They were here to stay, blending heartfelt ballads with high-energy tracks that cemented their place in 90s R&B history. By 1998, Sisqó's star power was undeniable. He wasn't just the standout member of Dru Hill, he was becoming a household name in his own right. Whether it was his flashy charisma, commanding stage presence, or leading most of their hits, Sisqó had the spotlight firmly fixed on him. He was also booking features as a solo artist, further solidifying his rising status. Meanwhile, the dynamics within Dru Hill began to shift. Nokio was laser-focused on production and handling the business side of things, but for Woody and Jazz, frustration was setting in. Jazz, in particular, felt overshadowed. As a bigger guy, he believed his size was working against him. "They'd push me to the back in photos," he said, feeling like he wasn't getting the recognition his voice deserved. Woody, on the other hand, faced an even deeper internal conflict. Raised in a strict Baptist household, his mother always called R&B the devil's music. Touring with the group brought no solace. He felt disconnected, unloved by fans, and overshadowed during performances. One night, everything changed for Woody. While praying, he said he heard a voice telling him, "You will never get what you want until you're doing it for me." At that moment, Woody felt a divine calling to leave Dru Hill and pursue a different path. It was a decision that would shock fans and mark a turning point for the group's trajectory. Thank you, Lord, for this opportunity to entertain and perform. Lord, please bless this performance as you have all the other ones. Let everybody enjoy it. Let us do a great job. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. During the filming of the Wild Wild West music video, everything fell apart for Dru Hill. The track, which was part of the soundtrack for the movie of the same name, was a major opportunity for the group, but tensions boiled over when Woody decided he'd had enough. As they were shooting, Sisqó dominated most of the scenes, leaving the other members standing around waiting. For Woody, it was the last straw. Feeling increasingly sidelined and cheated, he walked off the set, leaving the group mid-shoot. The remaining 3 members had to finish the video without him. This wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment decision, it was the culmination of months of frustration. Adding to Woody's discontent was a traumatizing experience during a show in Paris. Shortly after landing, the group was warned they might face trouble that night. A local gang with ties to the concert promoters was notorious for starting fights to rob artists. Most of their victims were rappers, so Dru Hill didn't take the warning seriously, until it was too late. At the venue, things spiraled when their security turned down a fan's photo request. A brawl broke out and one of the gang members pulled out a firearm. Dru Hill's security rushed them into a van, but the shooter pursued, firing at the van's windows. Fortunately, the group ducked and avoided injury. Afterward, the U.S. Embassy stepped in to ensure their safety, providing heavy security at their hotel. For Woody, this was the breaking point. He was already questioning his place in the group, and this terrifying ordeal shook him to his core. Returning to the U.S., the group's first major appearance was the Wild Wild West video shoot. While Sisqó was front and center, dancing and singing in nearly every frame, Woody was left on the sidelines with nothing to do. To make things worse, one of Woody's girlfriends was on set, which only added to the embarrassment. That day, he made up his mind. He was done with Dru Hill. I was just in my room at the hotel, and I was like, man, I'm writing songs that people like. I'm doing this, I'm performing, like busting my tail every night, but I don't feel good. And I just asked the Lord, and just as plain as we're sitting here talking right now, He told me, pretty much, you're never going to shine unless you're doing it for me, until you do what I want you to do, basically. And when I heard that, I said, well, why waste any more time? Let me go in there and let them know that I want to do gospel. Despite Woody's departure, the group pushed forward, releasing You Are Everything in 1999. However, without Woody in the music video, the single didn't hit as hard as previous releases. It became their lowest charting track from the album, landing at number 27 on the R&B charts. To keep things moving, Dru Hill began performing and making appearances as a trio, but the reception was lukewarm at best. The magic of their four-part harmony and group chemistry felt incomplete. That same year, big changes were happening behind the scenes. Island Records merged with Def Jam, forming the Island Def Jam Music Group. This meant Dru Hill's sophomore album, Enter the Dru, would be their final project under Island Black Music. From there, the group transitioned to Def Jam's Def Soul subsidiary, marking the beginning of a new chapter. Let's pause and talk about Def Soul. Founded in the late 90s by Russell Simmons and Kevin Liles, the label was designed to be the R&B counterpart to the powerhouse that was Def Jam Records. It had already seen massive success with artists like Montel Jordan and his smash hit, This Is How We Do It. And by 1999, it was building a roster of serious talent. Alongside Dru Hill, Kelly Price was making waves as one of the label's standout acts. But while Def Soul was poised to shake up the music industry, Dru Hill found themselves at a crossroads. They were down a member, and the momentum from Enter the Dru was starting to fade. It was clear that, as much as they wanted to move forward, something had to give. And if it wasn't for Jazz, Nokio, and Woody, I wouldn't be the artist I am today. So it's kind of like a message, to the rest of the world that, hey, there is more than one member of Dru Hill. If you had to guess which member of Dru Hill would break out as a solo star in the 90s, the smart money was always on Sisqó. Sure enough, in November 1999, he stepped out on his own with his debut album, Unleash the Dragon. At first, the album saw moderate success, until it unleashed Thong Song on the world. It was an instant smash, climbing to number 3 on the charts and becoming a cultural phenomenon. People couldn't stop singing it, and it practically became an anthem for the early 2000s. But Sisqó wasn't done. His follow-up single, Incomplete, soared all the way to number 1 on the pop charts, something Dru Hill as a group had never achieved. To match his skyrocketing fame, Sisqó debuted a bold new look, trading in his iconic blonde hair for a platinum makeover, much like his album sales. Unleash the Dragon went on to sell over 5 million copies, cementing Sisqó as a solo star. Sisqó's whirlwind success didn't stop there. He even had his own action figure, and his name was everywhere. Shout out to Cheney Johnson, my manager Kenneth, The Firm, and of course, that thong, the thong. But Sisqó wasn't the only Dru Hill member making moves. While Sisqó dominated the spotlight, Nokio leaned into his role as a producer, crafting tracks for heavyweights like DMX and Foxy Brown. he and Cisco also launched a joint label called Dragon Records, where they signed an R&B girl group named Love Her. Their debut single, How It's Gonna Be, even landed on the Rush Hour 2 soundtrack in 2001. While Cisco was the face of the solo breakout, Nokio proved that Dru Hill's talent wasn't confined to just the spotlight. The legacy of Dru Hill was evolving, even as their paths began to diverge. In 2001, Jazz was on the verge of launching his solo career, but things didn't go as planned. Due to clashes with Def Jam's head honcho Liar Cohen, his project never saw the light of day, and Jazz was ultimately dropped as a solo artist. Reflecting on that time, Jazz revealed, "After the glitz and glamour, all I did was watch television and eat. There was no real money coming in, so I would drive around the city in a cab just to make $70 or $80. I'd gone from spending thousands a day to hacking. It was a humbling moment for a man who once graced platinum records." Meanwhile, Woody Rock had his sights set on a completely different path. While his Dru Hill bandmates were still deep into R&B, Woody was determined to carve out a lane in gospel music. He was even dubbed the Gospel All-American Super Pioneer for his ambition to bring gospel to the mainstream. According to Woody, Kevin Liles, then an exec at Def Jam, wanted to keep him on the label to pursue a solo project. However, there was one problem. Def Jam didn't do gospel. Liles allegedly tried to sway Woody to stay in the R&B world, even asking him to make cameos in things like Cisco's Thong Song video to keep the label happy, but Woody's heart was elsewhere. Disillusioned, he left Def Jam entirely and signed with Gospel-centric records, home to gospel legends like Kirk Franklin and DeAndrea Clark Cole. In 2002, Woody released his debut gospel album, Soul Music. Despite its spiritual depth, the album suffered from poor promotion, leading to lackluster sales. Woody's shift to gospel, while commendable, wasn't the career revival he had hoped for. Both Jazz and Woody's struggles underscored the harsh realities of life after group fame, a stark contrast to the height of Dru Hill's success. For whatever reason, the album was not promoted. I know that the day that it was released, I asked even in my own city, like, why are there no posters out here letting people know that my project is out? And I was told that the fan of the person who puts the posters up had caught a flat tire, and that's why nobody put any pictures up. That sounds crazy to me. While Woody was struggling with the lack of promotion for his gospel debut, Cisco was focused on maintaining his dominance in the R&B scene. Following the massive success of his first album, Unleash the Dragon, Cisco dropped his sophomore effort, Return of Dragon, in 2001. Critics received the album positively, but commercially, it didn't pack the same punch. Unlike Thong Song or Incomplete, none of the tracks emerged as major hits, leaving the project to fall flat. Around this time, Cisco also found himself entangled in some serious R&B beef, specifically with R. Kelly, arguably the top artist in the genre at the time. Cisco had declared in interviews that he was running R&B, a claim that didn't sit well with the self-proclaimed king of R&B. R. Kelly took the jab personally and clapped back on his unfinished business collaboration album with Jay-Z, spitting the line, 20 on the drop, blue and yellow rocks, Kiki yelling stop, Cisco's album flopped. It was a clear shot, and R. Kelly didn't mince words about why he responded. He later addressed the diss, saying, "I just didn't appreciate how my man got on TV and said he was shutting it down when it came to R&B. I ain't going to lie, it triggered me a little bit where I had to speak up on that." But Cisco wasn't done feeling himself. During the Return of Dragon promo run, he took shots at another R&B heavyweight, Usher, telling the New York Daily News, "I'm the man. Usher can't touch me. He ain't even close." Unfortunately, for Cisco, Return of Dragon failed to live up to the hype. And when the numbers didn't add up, his label wasn't ready to gamble on another solo attempt. Instead, they decided to regroup Dru Hill and give the band another shot at reclaiming their place in the music world. By 2002, Dru Hill was at a crossroads. Audiences weren't vibing with the trio dynamic of Cisco, Nokio, and Jazz. Even Cisco admitted that attendance at their shows began to dwindle without the full lineup. Meanwhile, one of the conditions of Woody's departure back in 1999 was that he'd return for one final album with the group. Hoping to revitalize their sound and maintain momentum, the group invited new member Rufus Scola Waller to join Woody in rounding out their lineup. In November 2002, they released Dru World Order. Produced primarily by Nokio, the album introduced a slightly evolved sound. Its lead single, I Should Be, performed decently, peaking at number 6 on the R&B charts. Reflecting on his experience, Scola described the group as down to earth and passionate about their craft. They good people, man. From what I've seen, none of them, they don't trip when it comes to this quote-unquote stardom stuff. We love to do music, you know what I mean? And I love the guys. Dru World Order sold 122,000 copies in its first week and eventually earned gold certification. While respectable, these numbers paled compared to the platinum success of their earlier projects. Adding to the group's frustration was their belief that the album wasn't given the proper promotion. They felt their label, Def Soul, had put them on the back burner in favor of promoting 112, who were dominating the charts at the time. As if things couldn't get more complicated, on March 20th, 2003, the day their video for I Love You debuted on BET, the group was hit with a $30 million lawsuit from their former manager, Kevin Peck. The suit accused Dru Hill of breach of contract, alleging that Peck was owed compensation dating back to 1997. He also claimed entitlement to a share of the group's income for as long as they remained under a recording contract. The case was ultimately settled out of court, but the turbulence surrounding the lawsuit only added to the challenges Dru Hill faced during this chapter of their career. In 2003, Dru Hill's turbulence reached new heights when Cisco found himself in legal trouble. He was arrested for allegedly firing shots at his neighbor's brother's car, leading to charges of assault, reckless endangerment, and resisting arrest. While the assault charges were later dropped, Cisco received unsupervised probation for the remaining charges. At the time, he claimed the incident stemmed from receiving threats and acting in self-defense. He was released on $175,000 bond the following day, but the situation further strained his image and career. Meanwhile, Nokio was making headlines for quieter reasons. He welcomed a son with legendary radio DJ Angie Martinez, though the couple kept their relationship tightly under wraps. To this day, they've barely spoken publicly about their time together. While the personal milestone brought joy, Dru Hill's professional challenges were mounting. By 2004, tensions between the group and Def Soul, led by L.A. Reid, hit a breaking point. With no new music recorded since Dru World Order, the group was dropped from the label. Cisco's solo deal was also terminated, marking a significant downturn in his once dominant career. Cisco's solo journey had already begun to lose steam following the disappointing reception of his sophomore album, Return of Dragon. Despite branching out into other ventures like starring in Snow Dogs with Cuba Gooding Jr. and hosting his own dance reality show on MTV, his music career stalled. According to Cisco, this was largely because he refused to conform to industry expectations. Instead of collaborating with the big names the label wanted him to, he opted to work with his family and hometown talent. While this was a noble move, the industry labeled him as difficult to work with, effectively shutting down future opportunities. By 2004, the spark of Cisco's solo stardom was dimming, and Dru Hill's future was uncertain. Things were quiet on the Dru Hill front until 2008, when the group stirred up buzz after Woody quit live on air during a radio interview. The dramatic moment had fans and listeners in shock, only for Woody to reveal years later that it was all a stage hoax. While the stunt was amusing in hindsight, Woody would eventually leave the group for real. His departure led the remaining members to hold a contest in Baltimore to find a replacement. Enter their new member, Tao, who was officially introduced on their fourth album, NDR Uppendance Day. When asked about the absence of Scola, who had previously joined the group, Nokio quipped, "5 people mess up the money," hinting at internal disagreements that likely led to Scola's departure. Independence Day dropped in 2010 and achieved moderate success. That same year, the group appeared on Keith Sweat's Platinum House, a reality show on Centric chronicling their comeback journey and the making of the album. The show also delved into the group's struggles with their past lifestyle choices. Nokio openly admitted to excessive partying and drug use, sharing that he had regularly taken ecstasy during their early days. "We had done everything in excess," he reflected. Jazz, too, battled addiction and even entered rehab to get help. During this turbulent time, Sisqó faced a different kind of drama. A woman named Jamila Fared came forward with allegations that she and Sisqó had a relationship when she was 14 years old. She claimed they met at a nightclub in Zurich while Dru Hill was on tour. According to Jamila, she never disclosed her age, and Sisqó never asked. The situation came to light when she attempted to confront him, and after Sisqó repeatedly denied paternity and refused to take a test, the Swiss courts intervened. Ultimately, Sisqó was ordered to pay child support for her child, further adding to the controversies that plagued the group during this period. Around 2014, drama found its way back to Dru Hill in the form of a bizarre backstage fight between Sisqó and Kyle from Jagged Edge. A video of the incident surfaced online, leaving fans scratching their heads. To this day, neither party has confirmed if the fight was staged or legitimate. When asked about the scuffle, Sisqó simply said, "Do you remember what the conversation was that led to the fight?" His response? "Nope, classic Sisqó." In 2015, Sisqó attempted to reignite his solo career with a new album, but unfortunately, it failed to chart. Meanwhile, the group saw more changes. Jazz and Tao both left, citing personal projects and Jazz's ongoing focus on his health, as his weight had begun to affect his ability to perform. This left Nokio and Sisqó as a duo. Determined to carry on, the pair enlisted Smokey and Digital Black from the group Playa to join them for their next project. In February 2020, Dru Hill dropped their first single as this new lineup, What You Need, in anticipation of their album, The Second Coming. However, not long after, Nokio announced he was leaving the group, explaining that he wanted to spend more time with his family. He also cited unresolved conflicts with their manager, Kevin Peck, who had been brought back into the fold after the group settled their lawsuit with him. While the lineup has felt like a revolving door at times, Dru Hill continues to thrive on stage. Over the years, members have come and gone, but fans still flock to hear that signature Dru Hill sound. Today, the group consists of Sisqó, Jazz, Nokio, who returned from his brief departure, Scola, Digital Black, and Smokey. Together, they've been selling out shows both internationally and in the US. The lineup may shift, but one thing remains constant. Fans still adore the magic Dru Hill brings to the stage. Nokio, Woody, Jazz, and Sisqó, the original powerhouse quartet, crafted music that defined a generation of 90s R&B. Their harmonies were timeless, their performances unforgettable, and their sound a perfect fusion of gospel roots and modern soul. From Nokio's visionary production to Woody's heartfelt gospel influence, Jazz's unmatched depth, and Sisqó's magnetic stage presence, Dru Hill carved their place in music history with undeniable talent and raw emotion. Though the group has faced its share of lineup changes, industry struggles, and personal reinventions, the spirit of Dru Hill remains as soulful as ever. They've evolved over the years, but their core essence, their ability to connect through powerful harmonies and authentic storytelling, still resonates with fans around the world. The Dru Hill story is more than a chapter in R&B history. It's a testament to the enduring power of great music. And trust, their journey isn't over yet. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into your favorite 90s R&B legends. See you next time.